and welcome to our low carb, no sugar cooking channel. I'm Ronnie, also known as John from MasterChef, and today I'm going to show you how I make a version of a sweetened shortcrust pastry using nut flour and sweetener instead of sugar. So today I've got 200 grams of almond flour, and into that we are going to put 20 grams of sweetener. This is a pastry case which you can fill with anything you like. You can turn it to custard tart, treacle tart, lemon tart, whatever. Fill it with whatever you like. Chocolate is one of my favourite go-tos. And to help give this a bit of a crisp, we're going to add a bit of tapioca starch. So 10 grams of tapioca starch goes in, along with 20 grams of coconut flour. So that's our dry mix. Just give that a little stir together. All of those, we don't need those anymore. So we stir all of that together. And then to bind it, I'm going to use 30 grams of melted butter and an egg yolk. So we just crack the egg, separate the white, and we'll keep the white back for giving it a wash whilst it's in the oven, which will help seal the pastry case so that nothing leaks out. There. And in goes 30 grams of melted butter. Give that all a stir, get it together. And the same as a normal sweet crust, short crust, we're going to wrap it up in clingfilm and stick it in the fridge so that the butter goes a bit hard, so it's a little bit easier to roll out. The last bit, just get your hands in, give it a squeeze, get it together. Don't worry about overworking this one as you would a normal short crust, because there's no gluten in here, so it will always fall apart. That is the joy of this one. So once it all starts to combine, we'll get some cling film. Just roll out the cling film, pour in the nut mix, and then just wrap it up nice and tight. As I say, it is a crumbly one. You can stick a bit of xanthan gum in there, which will help keep it together. But in this instance, I'm not going to fill it in. But if you're finding it a struggle to actually roll it out and get it in, maybe mix in a bit of xanthan gum, and that will hold it together. Right, so that's tight like that, and that goes in the fridge for about 10 minutes just to harden up, and then we will. Right, so now this has been in the fridge for about 10 minutes, it's gone a bit harder. To roll this out, what you're going to need is you're going to need a bit of greaseproof paper, so just peel one layer off. Stick it down. And then simply unravel the pastry, dunk it in the middle, and then you're going to need another piece on the top. Otherwise you're just not going to be able to roll it. It's going to stick to everything. Oh, and actually the best way I find is I've got a pre-lined tart tin here, so I've already lined the base with greaseproof paper, and if you want to get a really thin base for the tart, if you place that on top of the greaseproof paper, and then take 2/3 of the nut mix, push it down in there, then place another piece on top, and then you can roll this out as thin as you like. Takes a few minutes, but don't worry about the excess coming off the edge, if you just want to get a good base. And as I say, depending on how you like it, thin base, thick base, completely up to you. Different for whatever filling you're going to be putting in there. So just keep dotting it around, because as I said, it's really crumbly unless you put in something like xanthan gum, which will hold it together a little bit better. So I I find that just doing that all the way over the edges, make sure all the edges are filled. Now simply peel the top off, right? And then lift up the base and you can feel the metal bit underneath. You pull it out, and what you've got is you've got a super thin base that goes over the top, the bottom, and then you can just plop it in there, and it goes in there. But obviously all the edges aren't filled. I mean, if you put xanthan gum in there, you can roll it all out, and then you can kind of flip it in, and it's a bit more malleable. But when it's not got any in there, it's really tricky to get the sides perfect. So what I like to do next is basically just grab some of the nut pastry and kind of push it into the edges. So this is where you don't get the perfect edge, but it really does work quite well. As I say, because you've got the super thin bottom. Right, so once you've lined your tin, you've got a lovely lined pastry case. What you're going to want to do is blind bake it. So I've got an oven at 160 degrees preheated, and I'm going to use some baking beans. So I always get a bit of cling film, and I just roll it straight across the top of the case, like so. Get your baking beans or your rice, whatever you use, whatever you like to use. Pour it into the middle, and then just slowly move it to the edges. And then you can just cut the cling film off, like so, and then just peel it over and fold it into the middle. Just tuck it inside of the pastry shell so it's not touching the metal. I find if it's touching the metal on the edge, it will melt and it can pull it off. But if it's just sat in the middle of the pie, it's absolutely fine. So once again, there's a lined pastry case, and I'm going to put this in the oven for 9 minutes. Right, so after 9 minutes in the oven, we've got a pastry case and the baking beans removed. We've got a pastry case that looks like that. So now take the egg white that we saved earlier and give it a little brush all the way around. This will help seal it, so if there is any tiny little holes, when you pour your liquid on for a custard tart or a chocolate tart, whichever tart you like to make, it won't seep through. So we're going to quickly brush this all the way around the base, just up the sides a little, and then we're going to put it back in the oven with no baking beads in this time for another 3 minutes, and after that it should be ready. So now it's had another 3 minutes in the oven with the egg wash. So this is what we end up with. Ooh, it's a little bit hot for me at the minute. Let me grab that. So we've got a lovely nut pastry case. And as I said, you can fill this with anything you like. You know, you can turn it into a lemon meringue pie, a cherry bakewell, custard tart, chocolate tart, whatever fillings you like to do. So I hope this video was helpful, and look forward to the next video where I shall show you what I like to put inside one of these.